Hello everyone, my name is Teresa and welcome back to my channel. Today we'll be talking about an SME cyber risk management system or tool that helps small and medium enterprises and businesses manage their risk effectively. Managing cyber risk does not have to mean that you need to buy expensive GRC software or build a complicated system from scratch. In this video, I will demonstrate how the SME Cyber Risk Management Toolkit helps you record, assess, prioritize, and monitor cyber risk using one ready-to-use tool. So when you first open the toolkit, you have to start with the instructions tab. This provides a simple overview of how the workbook and explains how to complete your risk assessment. So it basically gives an overview of how the workbook works. So we have that before you begin, set your risk appetite in the settings tab. So this is the settings tab, it's the last tab. So when you click on that, this is the risk appetite section. So for now, we have our risk appetite set to 9.0. Then we come back to the instructions tab where we have identify, add business context, access inherit risk, document controls, select treatment, take action, assess residual risk, compare with appetite, monitor and review. So the workflow is basically to set your risk appetite, which you've done. We'll go ahead to identify the risk, add business context, access inherit risk, document controls, select treatment, track action, assess residual risk. That's after the controls have been implemented and they are working. Compare with appetite and then monitor and review. So basically, that's the workflow we'll be working with, and that's the workflow this toolkit goes by. The risk register. So this is a risk register tab. The risk register is where you record and manage your organization's risk. So you begin by entering information such as the assets, as you can see here, the assets, the threads, the description, department, business owner, so on and so forth. This gives every risk the context and accountability it needs. So when we are to look at a risk on its own, we're able to tell which assets it affects, the thread, the description, the department, and then the owner without having to, struggle. So we are going to work an example exactly. So these examples are pre-populated. It comes with a toolkit. But if an example does not apply to your risk environment, you can always delete it, take it out, or change it into something that applies to your environment. This whole section has been automated. So whichever risk you put in, the system will pick it up from there and, work with it, thereby reducing the workload of having to rack everything with your brain. So let's include an example. So this is a rough example I want to include. So you begin by typing 16 because that's a 16th number. And then so in case you have any notification like that, you just click continue editing. It doesn't change anything at all. So I want to go with ransomware at the risk. So our assets could be database, our database. So you type that, the thread just ransomware attack. Sorry, okay. And in the description, malware, malware encrypts business data and systems within our database, disrupting operations and demanding payments. So basically that's ransomware, and it affects all departments. And then the business owner, if you know the business owner, you can put it here, or you just can type to assign. So that's something you come back to. And the risk category, definitely technical. So as we move on, realize that any cell that has a yellow coloring requires that we manually input a figure between 1 to 5. Okay, so let's say we have 4 for likelihood, 4 for impact, 4 for operational impact, 4 for reputational impact, and 4 for regulatory impact. And then the minute you press enter, your weighted impact is automatically calculated, your inherent risk score is automatically calculated, and your risk level is also calculated. So moving on, you include any existing controls you have in place, and then you choose a treatment plan as to whether to mitigate, accept, transfer, or avoid. In addition to your risk level and risk score being calculated automatically, the system also suggests a mitigation plan. Is that okay? So this mitigation plan could be your starting point, just in case you have nothing in mind. This could be a good starting point for you when it comes to mitigating a particular risk. So the action owner, if you're yet to assign, you can just type to assign and then can come back to it later on. And then the action status, we have not started, in progress, blocked, monitoring complete. So blocked will be if you decide that the treatment plan is something you are going to avoid altogether. But if it's something you are going to want to mitigate, you can choose in progress, where the completion status will be 25%. Automatically, it's going to give you that so that you know how far along you are. If you hit complete, it's going to be 100%, then you know that you are done with it. So this too is to make your work very easy and not make it complicated, or you having to, like think over again over a particular thing or concept that could waste time. So moving on, we have the target date. So you can input a date and a review date. So residual, from this tab onwards, this is where we come back to the risk register and then input scores or numbers based on how effective the controls or the mitigation plans we've put in place are working. So let's say that we implemented the mitigation plan, we implemented the control, and we realized that things were going good, things are going good now. So the likelihood of that risk being happening is probably 1 now. And then realize that the financial impact is also going to be 1, the operational impact is also going to be 1, the reputational impact is also going to be 1, and the regulatory impact is also going to be 1. So once you click enter, everything is going to be automatically calculated without wasting time. So you realize that the residual impact is 1, and then the score is 1, and the residual level is low. So that means that our controls are working now, and this is a risk that has been treated properly. It's also going to calculate the risk score, and it's also going to let you know if it's within appetite or not. So you remember we set our appetite in settings, which is 9.0, and since our residual current risk score is 1, then it's definitely low and it's within appetite. So it's going to let you know that it's within appetite without having to move back and forth within the settings tab to see if a particular score is within appetite or not. It's going to let you know immediately that it's within appetite, so you can move on to the next thing. Okay, so this is how the risk register tab in the tool works. Like I said, most of these things are pre-populated. If it doesn't apply to your environment, you can take it out. You can edit it to suit your environment. Is that okay? All right, so moving on to the next tab, we have priorities. Okay, so the priorities view brings you the most important risk together. So you realize that with the risk register, we have both the low, the high, and everything being like showing here. But with the priorities tab, it automatically ranks the highest or the critical risk first, and then it helps you to focus your resources on on those areas that need attention first, without being overwhelmed with the areas that do not need attention, let's say now. Is that okay? So moving on, we have so the priorities tab it provides a smart mitigation. It also provides smart mitigation recommendations that can be adapted to suit your organization. So when you look down here, basically gives you some rules, and I call it call to action on what to do, as in immediately, something like a first aid that needs to be done ASAP. to ensure that that risk does not get out of hand. So for critical risk, you need to escalate immediately. And then for high risk, we need to assign an owner and create a time-bound treatment plan. For medium, include near-term security roadmap. For low medium, we have schedule an appropriate or an appropriate improvement and monitor, proportionate improvement and monitor. And then for low, we have monitor, document, acceptance, and review periodically. It's okay. Then the next steps, there are some next steps here that you can follow for each risk to ensure that each risk is being attended to according to how critical, according to their current level, is okay, their current risk level. Moving on, we have the dashboard. So as the risk register is populated, the executive dashboard updates automatically. So you see in our risk register, we have 16 risks. As you can see here, a total of 16 risks. So this is done automatically. Is that okay? It's a dynamic view. So everything, you don't do anything here. Everything is populated for you based on the data you enter in your risk register, and it makes things easier. You're able to have an overview of the total risk, the total critical risk, the total high risk, medium risk, low risk, the ones that are out of appetite, and an average risk score, and then the ones that are due. When you set a review date, it will let you know the risk reviews that are due in 30 days time, so that you can prepare towards it. You have the critical level by count. So here, if it's critical, the number of critical risk, the number of high risk, the number of medium risk, and the number of low, medium, and low risk. Everything is going to be populated automatically in this section. The same for action status, for the mitigation plans that have been started, in progress, blocked, and all that. You're going to see that here too. Like I said, everything is automated. These are visual graphs to help you understand what is happening. So when you click here, you can see we have low risk. These are the low, medium risk, the medium risk, the high risk, critical risk, and then the action status, we have the not started, the in progress, the monitoring, and all that. So these are visual maps to help you understand how far you are when it comes to treating your risk. We also have a risk map, a risk matrix, or a heat map. So we from our risk register, we realize that we have a minimal risk, 2 moderate risk, 1 likely risk, and 1 major risk. So whatever data you input in your risk register is going to show here, and it's going to tell you which risk, how many risk you have in the moderate section, or in the very likely section, or in the likely section, in terms of impact and likelihood coming together. Is that okay? And then for this one, you have the top 5 current risks. These are the risks that need your immediate attention. So instead of having to go through your risk register to try to figure out which risk needs your attention ASAP, the dashboard does that for you in this section. Is that okay? So from the data we've inputted so far, ransom attack is critical and it needs our immediate attention ASAP, and it's even outside our appetite. So then that need to focus our resources on this particular one as soon as possible. Is that okay? Moving on, we have the reference tab. So the reference tab basically helps you to explain some of the things, or some of the let me say legend used in the risk register. So we have the likelihood score being 5. So 5 here means very likely, and meaning like it has happened in the past 12 months and it's likely to happen again. So we have that for the impact factor too, which is the financial, operational, reputational, regulatory, and weighted impact. So it basically explains what to consider when you are scoring any of these factors. And then you have the impact score, and you also have the risk level in terms of the scoring. So anything 20 and above is critical, anything 15, between 15 and 20 is high. Same for medium, low, medium, and low. And then the risk appetite and tolerance. So compare, treat, review, and all that. So basically explains what you need to do or what it entails. or what to consider when dealing with any of these in the risk register. And then we have tips and resources. So these are resources to just help you along the way. Is that okay? So if you don't have an action framework, you can use this action framework in dealing with your risk, where you can assign week 1 to week 2 to access, week 3 to prioritize, week 4 to plan, and then the second and third month to execute, the fourth month to review, and then for monitoring is to be an ongoing process. So this will help you to treat the risk in an organized and orderly manner without having to be all over the place. And also there are some resources that are listed here if you ever need an external resource to help you along the way. And then we have our final tab, which is settings. So the settings tab allows you to customize risk thresholds and appetite level, so the toolkit reflects your organization's approach to risk. So you can set your risk appetite here. Your organization's risk appetite might be lower or higher, but whatever it is, once you set it here, whatever information you put in the risk register will be aligned accordingly. Is that okay? And this tab also shows you how the financial, operational, reputational, and regulatory impacts are weighted, or how they are calculated. Each is 25%. And then this is the critical risk, the minimum score for each risk level. Again, in the matrix colors. So when you see a color without seeing the wording, you know that I see that critical, high, medium, or low. And then we have action status, risk category, treatment decision, and default completion when it comes to percentages. Is that okay? So at this the settings tab basically shows you how the tool works. And in case you don't understand anything, you can always come back to the settings tab or the resources tab so that you can enlighten yourself and make things easier for you. Is that okay? So there'll be a link to purchase this tool in the description below, and you can always purchase it. Use it to assess and monitor your risk as an as a small business or a medium business, or even as a professional. You can purchase it to manage your own type of risk or your own type of risk on your own, or maybe just to, as a beginner, you can purchase this and just play around it to have a fair idea of how GRC systems or risk management systems work, so that you have a fair idea of how these things work before you step into the real environment or before you step out there. So I hope this video has been helpful in explaining how the tool works. And I hope you go ahead and purchase it, as it's a very valuable tool and would aid your progress or your effectiveness in assessing cyber risk effectively. Thank you very much for your time. See you in my next video. Bye.